for about 4 minutes, the kids will freak out. They'll say, "What are we going to do, Mom and Dad? How are we going to live? We're going to be like the Amish kids. Do you want us to churn butter with our feet?" Welcome back to The Legacy Show. I am your host, Nick Sales, and today we're going to talk about something that's very close to my heart. We're going to talk about something that I think that is one of the biggest issues that we are facing today in the world, that we are facing and that our kids are facing, and that is social media and video games, the access to the internet and all of that stuff, smartphones, screens, all of that stuff. It's a very, very important topic, not only for us, but like I said, for future generations. Now this show, The Legacy Show, we talk about building our legacies. But for this particular episode, I want to focus more on helping other people build their legacies, specifically our children. And I think that a lot of this will apply if you are a parent, but also if you're not a parent, a lot of this will still apply to you. So this is something that I talk about. I travel to high schools, junior highs, and middle schools all across America and Canada to kids about social media. And this presentation is kind of the presentation that I give to parents. There's a couple things that are different, but as I go through this, keep in mind, if you would like me to give this presentation to a parent night or at an event, I would love to travel out to where you're at and to give this presentation. So without further ado, let's get started. So there was a study that came out where they asked kids what they want to be when they grow up. And in this study, they got a couple really funny answers. There were kids that said that they wanted to be a dancing unicorn or an octopus or a fence doctor. I don't really know what that is. Another kid said that they want to be the ice cream man at Costco, which is an awesome job to have. But the most interesting thing is that in this study, the top two common answers that they got was number one, YouTuber, and number two, blogger or vlogger or social media influencer. And I think that you can see that if you have kids or if you are around kids who are in the middle school to high school range, you'll see that increasingly more and more kids are wanting to become YouTubers and social media influencers and TikTokers and streamers, which I don't think is necessarily bad. The issue is that a lot of kids want to do this, but then they are never taught how to use these platforms properly, and they end up it ends up destroying their lives. And I have seen this over and over and over again, because the thing is that I work with some of the top YouTubers and social media influencers in the world. And so I have seen personal experiences where I have seen how social media can really bless and influence and inspire others, but I have also seen it absolutely destroy people. So this is why I do what I do, is I go around and I talk to schools and I talk to parents to try to help people realize the dangers that come from social media, video games, smartphones, internet, all that stuff. But more importantly, how to focus less on how many likes they're trying to get on social media, but focus more on building a legacy and developing their skills and talents and attributes to make a difference and to do good in the world. So during this podcast today, we're going to have some pretty uncomfortable conversations. We're going to talk about some pretty uncomfortable topics. But as you're listening to this podcast, I think that the most important thing that you should remember as you're listening to this is three very important words, which are the following: not my kid. There is a not my kid syndrome, I like to call it, in our parenting world, where parents, we describe all of these issues and struggles that kids are facing, and then parents think, no, not my little Timmy. My little Timmy has it all figured out. He's a great kid. And I'm sure he is a great kid. But a lot of these issues, I would say most of these issues, if your kid has social media or access to the internet, there is a high likelihood that they have either struggled or currently are struggling with some of these things. Now, I work as part of an organization called Save the Kids. And as part of that organization, we have received thousands of messages from kids, from parents, from school counselors, therapists. And there is a therapist that we got, there was a message that we got from a child therapist who said the following. She said, "A common thread that I've noticed is that 100% of my clients have smartphones, and a significant amount of things that they talk about are directly linked to what goes on those phones. Bullying, being a bully, developing a negative sense of self, sleep dysregulation, checking out by watching YouTube or gaming for hours, and porn. So much porn." For all those grown-ups saying, not my kid, yes, your kid. So we have started to make a comprehensive list of all of the problems that come from social media and video games. And I kind of want to go over those with you. And we'll start with video games. Video games, they can lead to poor social skills, time away from family, schoolwork, and other hobbies, lower grades, reading less, exercising less, becoming overweight, and having aggressive thoughts and behavior. And there are studies that show that playing violent video games increase aggression and can be a contributing factor to mass shootings. But the bigger factor than that is the sleep deprivation that video games cause. So I'm sure that a lot of people have, said like, oh, you're playing this violent video game, this violent shooter game. Does that lead to mass shootings? And I think that there is a little bit of correlation there, but the bigger factor than that, this is the fact that surprised me even more than that, was it's less about the violence of the video games. It's more about the sleep deprivation that the video games cause. And I'm sure that if you have had a kid or had a teenager who is sleep deprived, they probably have had some issues with that sleep deprivation. And it just makes sense that the way that the brain works is that if we are not constantly getting nourishment, good food, healthy food, and good sleep, then the brain can start to do really crazy things. And that can lead to some pretty crazy behaviors. So another thing to be especially aware of with video games are games with live chat, where your kids can talk to strangers online. These types of games are a paradise for pedophiles. And the three specifically that I want to mention, the top three that we see issues with is Fortnite, Roblox, and Minecraft. And we get messages all the time from parents saying that, they found out that their kid was messaging someone on one of these three websites or having a live chat, and they ended up not being who they said they were. And there are news articles coming out all the time. If you just, search news articles, there are pedophiles who use these gaming chat sites to extort photos or to meet up with these children. Sex trafficking, it's really bad. So there are other apps in addition to video games that pedophiles use to get to your kids, and these are their favorites. Number one, Kik, WhatsApp, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So if your child has any of these apps, there's a good chance that pedophiles are trying to get to them through these apps. And it's interesting because these pedophiles, they're tricky and they're good at what they do. And so usually they'll upload a profile with a nice looking young man who, looks 14 to 16 years old, who looks really attractive. And these girls think like, oh, he's just my internet boyfriend. When in reality, it's some 55-year-old man who has a drug addiction. And I'm looking right now at a picture of these felons and pictures of these felons who have gone to jail. And let me tell you, they are not good looking people. And they do not have good intentions with your children. So here's a little excerpt from this book called Glow Kids, which I highly recommend. And it talking about these pedophiles, these men who will use the internet. They say, these men promise food, shelter, and family. Others are seduced over the internet with the idea of a nice boyfriend. He's a faceless man that the girls meet online. He is nice to her, pays attention to her, listens to her problems about her parents, her friends at school, her teachers. He's a willing ear, someone who understands, someone who says he can make it better. But that is just the lure. Then he asks for a picture, and then another. Typically, the pictures that he asks for at first will not be explicit, but little by little, the request will get more sexual in nature. He is grooming his victim. By the time they meet, he can already tell her all the things that he knows about her and what he can show her family, the pictures that she sent him. The shame of that will make it hard for her to go back. Once you're starting down the rabbit hole, it is very hard to feel that you are able to turn around and go back. Another excerpt from the book says, back in the pre-social media days, there were sexual predators waiting to take advantage of a girl who may have felt a little bit lost or restless, or who maybe had a fight with her parents. But these were tangible boogeymen that parents could look out for, like the leering man at the playground, or the overly friendly store clerk, or the creep lounging around at the mall. But now, they are in your daughter's bedroom. They have made it right past the front door, past your protective parent armor, and landed literally in her lap, with her laptop or her smartphone or iPad. That's a pretty scary world that we live in. And a lot of people think that girls are only the only victims of these crimes. But in reality, there's a lot of crimes that we're seeing that are targeting young men. A lot of these, not necessarily pedophiles, but a lot of these scammers, what they'll do is they will create a fake Instagram account or Facebook account or any account on these websites or social media apps pretending to be a young, beautiful girl. And they'll start to chat with these young boys, and then they'll ask the boys for nude pictures or inappropriate pictures, and then boys, being dumb boys like they are, they'll send them. And then the person will reveal themselves and say that they're not actually a 14-year-old girl, but they'll say that they are a scammer, and they'll say, okay, now you need to you send me $1,000, or I'm going to show these pictures to everyone you know, all of your friends and all of your family. So these young men, their brains haven't fully developed. They are terrified of the thought and the idea of these pictures getting leaked to their family and friends, and so they figure out a way to send $1,000. And then the next week, the scammer comes back and he says, okay, now make it $2,000, or I'm leaking these pictures to everyone you know. And it continues on and on and on like this. And a lot of what we're seeing is that a lot of times this leads to suicide, because these young boys, they just think, I can't take this anymore. I can't keep doing this. They feel so shameful for what they've done, and they just feel so terrible that they've been wrapped up into this, that they just think that the best way to solve it is to end their life. And that is an extremely tragic thing that we're seeing with boys. So now let's move on and talk a little bit about Snapchat. Snapchat, it is an app that allows your kids to send messages and videos that delete themselves after they are opened. It was originally created for people to send inappropriate pictures to each other, and it is a playground for cyberbullying, meaning that it makes it more difficult to trace since all of the Snapchat posts disappear very quickly. There are also links on Snapchat. If you even go to the homepage, there are links that will take you directly to pornography websites. And if you look up online, you'll see that most of these pedophiles, I would say a good percentage of them, find their victims through Snapchat. Other apps and websites that pedophiles use or that are completely X-rated are Twitter and Reddit. So if your kids have access to those, just know that they have access to X-rated content. But do you want to know the number one place that toddlers are finding pornography? This is always a surprising fact when I tell this to parents. But the number one place that toddlers are finding pornography is YouTube Kids. Now, why? What is the reason behind this? Well, there are videos that have been uploaded to YouTube Kids that appear to be kids' videos. They're animated cartoons, and they look, really sweet and innocent from the beginning. But there are videos on YouTube Kids of Spider-Man and Elsa who are stimulating sex acts. There are cartoon videos of strippers. There are videos of Peppa Pig drinking bleach and injecting things into his body. And it's interesting because parents, they'll walk by their kids watching these videos on their iPad, and they'll say, oh, they're just watching Peppa Pig. When in reality, it's a knockoff version of Peppa Pig that someone has created where he's injecting bleach and other things into his body. There are knockoff videos of Paw Patrol with suicidal themes, and the list goes on and on and on. In fact, there are over 100,000 accounts on YouTube Kids created by child predators who leave comments on videos targeting children. And don't even get me started on how easy it is to find pornography on YouTube. So if your kids have access to that, just know that they are just a couple clicks away from finding pornography on there. Other apps that kids are finding porn is Etsy, Pinterest, and surprisingly enough, podcasts. There's Apple Podcasts and Spotify that are very explicit in nature and easy to find pornography-related themes there. So now we're going to move on and talk a little bit about TikTok. TikTok is the biggest contributing factor to gateway porn for teenagers. It also creates unrealistic expectations of how bodies should be. It has videos of girls showing other girls how to self-harm and how to be anorexic, and it is just as addictive as hard drugs. And if you have ever downloaded TikTok yourself, you would know that to be true because it is extremely hard to not get on there every second of the day. I have downloaded TikTok twice in my life. The first time I downloaded it, and after a couple hours, I was like, this is terrible. I hate this. I feel like it's just sucking me in. The algorithm is so addicting. It's so funny. It's so entertaining. This is not good for me. And then a couple months later, I tried to download it again just to see what it was like. And same exact experience. I realized that it was too addictive. And there was just stuff on there that I didn't want to be associating with. And I felt like it was a complete waste of time. It's super entertaining, don't get me wrong, and it's super hilarious. But you start scrolling and you realize after a little while that you've been on there for 3 hours, just aimlessly scrolling in all these funny videos. So there's a message that we got from a parent talking about her daughter who has TikTok, and she said that she has been starving herself to look pretty like the girls that she sees on TikTok, and her daughter is 12 years old. So that's the way that kids are acting when they see these models and anorexic girls on TikTok. They want to be like them. Here's an app that somebody left on TikTok, here's a review that somebody left on TikTok. They said that this app is a nightmare. It may look nice and popular, but after 7 months of using the app, I felt depressed about all the perfect bodies and all these people that were posting awful things. I thought that if I used this app, then I'd be popular in my school and it would help me to get more friends. Little did I know that the things that other people post is what will make you want to die because you don't have their life, or you want the things that they have, but you can't get it. So save yourself with the trouble and don't download this app. TikTok has these TikTok challenges, and there are new ones circulating all the time, but here are some TikTok challenges that have been popular lately. First one is what's called the eye challenge. This challenge has people holding a Ziploc bag full of bleach, hand sanitizer, jelly, and shaving cream next to their eye to change the color of their eyes. It seems legit and totally safe for kids, right? Next one is the silhouette challenge, which shows a girl in normal or casual clothes, and then a quick transition shows the girl either in lingerie or nude with a backlit red light filter. Now, the worst part is that these filters can be removed with little effort, which means that people's raw photos and videos end up floating around on the internet without their consent. The next challenge is the Benadryl challenge, which encourages people to take high volumes of Benadryl in order to get high, except it doesn't just give them a high, it can also cause seizures, heart problems, and can even be deadly. So if you think that your kid isn't stupid enough to try these, think again, because again, the kids are just, their brains are not fully developed and they don't see the world the same way that we do. They think that some of these challenges are fun and funny and everybody's doing it, and hey, this is how I get attention and this is how I get friends. And that's just the way that their brains think. So remember these 3 very important words: not my kid. Next, we're going to talk about Instagram. Studies have shown that Instagram is the #1 worst app for your mental health. And there are messages that we get from kids all the time saying that they have fake accounts flooding their inboxes with messages linking them to pornography. And people say that they get a couple messages like these every day. And then we usually ask, how old are you? And they usually say, oh, I'm 12. I'm 13 years old. And I'm getting messages with links to pornography. This kid, they messaged us, they said, I've gotten like 5 or 6 almost nude pictures in the past 3 weeks, even though my account is set to private. We asked, how old are you? And they said, I'm 15. This is a message that we got from a teenage girl. She said, I got Instagram when I was 11. That also happened to be the time when I started to hate my body. Throughout middle school, I felt like I was constantly trying to please other people. When I was 13, a guy asked me for nude photos. I was hesitant, but sent them anyways. His reaction made me feel like I had a great body, but it was temporary. Within a month, I was back to hating my body. Pretty soon, another guy asked me for nudes, and another, and it just kept going. Each time, they all said that my body was perfect and that I was so underrated. I always believed them, and it never crossed my mind that they might be using me. What they said about me made me feel so good. It was like I was addicted to their reactions. Social media had portrayed an image that brainwashed me into thinking that that's exactly what I had to be. And I did things that I never thought I would do just so that I could feel like I had reached that goal. I was striving to reach this crazy image that I saw every day on Instagram. Someone sent us a message. They said, I'm 13 years old. Every day I get asked for nude pictures or I'm sent pictures. Another message that we got said, I started going through depression when I was about 11, maybe 12, all because of social media. I would look at these girls and compare for legit hours. I didn't know what to do, but just cry and cry. I started to get suicidal. I would show up to school and act like I'm all fine, even though I'm the opposite. If I was sad, people would get mad at me and they'd try to, and if I tried to talk to people, then they would tell me you have no reason. When I got my phone, I thought it would be fun to download TikTok, and now it ruined my life. Another message that we got, hey, I don't know if you'll see this or respond to it. I don't know who else to go to. I'm terrified right now. I'm lying right here in my bed alone, sobbing and writing my suicide letter. The only thing keeping me from acting on it right now is my dog lying beside me. I don't know what else to do but to take my life. We're getting messages like this all the time. So here's a comprehensive list of all of the negative side effects, all of the dangers of what social media and video games do to you. Number 1, they create a cocaine-like addiction. And there's 3 reasons for that. The first reason is that it feels good to get likes. You post something, you get likes. Those likes give you a dopamine rush. That feels good. So then you end up wanting to post something else that will get more likes, that will give you more dopamine. And it just turns into this never-ending cycle, which creates an addiction. Number two, it feels like our phones are almost handcuffed to our wrists because we are always checking them every minute, every hour of the day, checking our phone because we have FOMO and we keep checking our phone to be like, what's new? What am I missing? What are my friends up to? What's going on in the world? We always have to refresh and see what's going on. And that's another thing that creates an addiction. And number three is that social media algorithms are designed to keep people locked on the site or platform by tracking what kind of content the user engages with and then feeding the user more of that content. So if you are searching for funny cat videos, the algorithm will recognize that, and then they will feed you more funny cat videos so that you can stay on their platform for as long as possible. Because the truth is, the longer you are on their platform, the more money they are making from advertisers. So they want you to stay on the platform for as long as possible. Now, the problem with this is that they will feed the user more of the content that they're searching for, even if it's more dangerous or extreme than what the user first searched for. So let's say you are into politics and you start searching things about politics, the algorithm will recognize that and they'll start to feed you extreme things about the politics that you're searching for, whether it's on the right or the left. And same goes for little kids and what they're searching for. If they search for things that seem to appear to be innocent at first, the algorithm will recognize that and will start feeding them more and more things that eventually will not be so innocent. So, cocaine-like addiction. Number two, higher likelihood of psychiatric disorders like ADHD. The reason for this is, how many of you guys have kids or teenagers at home where you sit at home and you turn on a movie and you look over and you realize that your kid cannot just focus on the movie. They have their phone out or they have their iPad out and they're looking at the movie and then they're looking at their phone and it's just like movie, phone, movie, phone, movie, phone. And they can't focus on one thing. And that's the way that these platforms are designed, is to keep your user so entertained. I mean, with TikTok, if they do not catch your attention in the first 2 seconds, then you're going to scroll on to another video. And so these algorithms have gotten really, really good at making sure that you are having this attention deficit disorder, meaning that you can only focus on this thing for a little bit, but then you have to focus on the next thing, but then you get bored of that, so you have to focus on the next thing. And that makes it really hard in real life, because if you're having a face-to-face conversation with someone, and if you're only entertained with that conversation for a few seconds, then they're going to try to look away and try to find something else to keep them engaged and to keep their attention. Number three, social media and video games create higher levels of anxiety and depression. That's because we get onto social media and we look and we see all of the fun and amazing things that our friends are up to, and we think, oh man, my life isn't like that. My life must be terrible. You know, I don't have as good of a life or as fun of a life as my friends or family do. So we start comparing ourselves to them, and that creates these higher levels of anxiety and depression because we feel like our life isn't great, when in reality it really is. Next problem is sexting, and then having those inappropriate pictures shared with everyone. And this is a big one that we see where, you know, kids or teenagers will be in a relationship and they'll send inappropriate pictures back and forth, and then inevitably they'll break up. But when they break up, those pictures aren't deleted. And a lot of times with breakups comes feelings of resentment. And so a lot of times those feelings will be shared with the friends or the schoolmates of one or the other. And that creates a lot of big issues, a lot of big legal issues too. Next is exposure to online predators who can abuse you or have you trafficked for sex. And we talked a little bit about that earlier. Next is cyberbullying. I think it's kind of funny because when we think of bullies, I think that we a lot of times think of like Biff from Back to the Future. When in reality, bullies a lot of times are just teenage girls who leave snarky comments on people's photos, or will create fake Instagram accounts, and they'll send messages to people that they don't like in school saying things like, no one likes you, you're ugly, you're a loser, you're fat, you have no friends, go kill yourself. It's super easy for these people to create fake accounts and to post hurtful or rude things to other people. And a lot of times they don't even have to create the fake accounts. A lot of times they'll just post mean things or comment mean things or send mean messages to other people. Next is unhealthy comparison. Again, we see other people and we think their life is perfect. What we don't understand is that social media is just a highlight reel. Nobody is posting their failures. Nobody is posting the hard things that they're going on in their life. Nobody is posting the arguments that they have with their spouses or their bad days. They're just posting the best of the best. And so we look at these highlight reels and then we think, man, their life is perfect, when in reality it's not. And that's really hard for little kids because their brains have not fully developed all the way. And so they sometimes don't understand what is real and what is fake. They don't understand that their friends also have bad days. They just see the highlight reel and they actually think that that is what their life is actually like. And that's especially true when little kids will see influencers. There's this thing called pornography, but there's another thing called lifestyle pornography. And what lifestyle pornography is it's basically following an influencer. A lot of times it's, the Instagram mom who appears to have the perfect husband, the perfect house, the perfect kids, the perfect body, who all they do is they make cookies together. Their house is always spotless and clean. And their husband is just a really good looking prince of a man. And they think, man, I wish that my life was like that. When in reality, that's not the full picture. It's not completely true. They don't see the behind the scenes. They don't see the 100 photos that they took before the photo that they posted that weren't good enough to make the cut. They don't see how that photo looked before it was edited to perfection. They don't see what their kids are like when they're running around screaming and being crazy. They don't see what their house looks like before the cleaners get there. It's such a fake world, and a lot of kids are not able to see past that fakeness, and they believe that is what it is. Next one is increased aggression. If you have a teenage boy who plays a lot of video games, and then if you take away his Xbox, chances are he's probably going to be pretty aggressive, maybe throw something against the wall or flip a table. And that is, definitely an issue. Next is sleep deprivation. Underdeveloped levels of communication and connection with others. A lot of times for kids, it's really easy for them to text or to message their friends, but then they try to have a face-to-face conversation with someone and they don't really know what to say. Loss of self-control, higher likelihood to self-harm and to have suicidal tendencies, and pornography. Lots and lots of pornography. In fact, this is a message that we got from a 14-year-old boy who is from Ogden, Utah. He says, "I've been currently struggling with an addiction to pornography. I've been taught at a young age to stay away from stuff like that, but at age 12, I was given my first phone, and I was doing well until I convinced my parents to get me an Instagram. I was slowly getting more addicted to my phone, taking time away from family and from stuff on social media. I was getting brainwashed that porn isn't that bad, that everybody does it. So I started doing it. I've been trying to stop, but I always get back into a relapse. It feels like I'm not myself anymore. I used to be the nicest, most fun kid to be around, but now it always feels like I'm in a cloud and I'm not as emotional as I used to be." So I'm sure that you or someone that you know have experienced any of these issues that we had just talked about: addiction, ADHD, anxiety, depression, sexting, exposure to online predators, cyberbullying, unhealthy comparison, increased aggression, sleep deprivation, underdeveloped levels of communication and connection, loss of self-control, higher likelihood to self-harm, have suicidal tendencies, pornography. These are issues that we see all the time with people. Now, the interesting thing about this is surely the creators of social media and all of these apps, they must have known these things before they released them. In fact, I can guarantee you that they knew these things before they were releasing them or as they were releasing these apps. In fact, their goal was to make these things as addictive as possible. And I'm sure that, all of the board members probably sat together at a conference table as they were talking about social media and what it was going to be. And surely one of them must have raised their hands and said, "Okay, but guys, you know that this is going to destroy the lives of millions of kids, right? You know this, right?" But I think that the guys around the board table, they probably just laughed and they said, "We don't care, because we're going to be driving Ferraris." And that is the sad and unfortunate truth, is that these apps and social media, they are not making the founders millions of dollars. They are making them billions of dollars, billions with a B. And so they honestly could care less about how addictive it is and what it's doing to your kid, because they are driving around in Ferraris, they are driving around in yachts, and they could care less. So A lot of people don't know this, but a very interesting fact is that the human brain is not fully developed until you are in your mid-20s. That is a problem. And the problem with that is because when parents hand their kids a smartphone without teaching them how to use it, it's almost as if you were to hand your kids keys to a motorcycle without teaching them how to use it. And if that were to happen, then inevitably something terrible would happen. If you were to hand your kids keys to a motorcycle right now or keys to a car without teaching them how to use it and then had them go out and drive the car, they're going to crash. And that's exactly how it is with social media as well. And the bigger issue with that is that most people whose brains are fully developed aren't even able to handle that either. You know, how many of us are over the age of 25 and still struggle with social media and an addiction and scrolling and all of these things that I've mentioned before? So yeah, the next time that you're in church and your kids are burping the ABCs and you say, Tyler, why would you do that? They can say, well, Mom, it's because my brain isn't fully developed. And they would be right. The funny thing about that is that when kids crash the motorcycle that we give them, we get mad at them. We say, how could you do this when we gave you a motorcycle? Why are you crashing? Metaphorically, like how could you look at pornography when I gave you that smartphone? How could you be doing that? The thing with pornography is that you cannot hand someone a snake and expect them to not get bit. You cannot hand a teenage boy a Playboy magazine and expect them to not open it. So, side note about pornography is that your kids are going to experience it. They are going to view it. It is common with girls, but it is more common with boys. And if your child comes up to you and says, hey, I have been struggling with pornography, if they say, Mom, Dad, I've been bit, then the way not to react is by yelling at them, by saying, how could you get bit by the snake that I gave you? I gave you that rattlesnake. How could you be so stupid and get bit by it? That is just such a ridiculous thing to say. Don't do that, because then they'll just learn to hide it from you better. We got a message from a teenage boy who said that he had been struggling with pornography, and we said, hey, you should talk to your parents about it. And he said, okay, I'll talk to my dad about it tonight. So then we said, okay, tell me how it goes after. I'm proud of you. And then he said, hey, when I was talking to my dad about it last night, he yelled at me. He said that I was gross, and then he sent me to my room. So that is not the appropriate way to react. When your kid comes to you and says that they have been struggling with pornography, the best way to react is step 1, hug them until it's uncomfortable, which is about a minute and a half. And then step 2, say, I am so grateful that you told me that you got bit. And then step 3, ask, what can we do to help you? So that brings us to the most common question that I get in Save the Kids, which is, at what age should I give my kid a smartphone? And the reality is that for boys, it's whenever you want them to start looking at porn. And for girls, it's whenever you want them to start having self-image issues and to start hating themselves. And that is the sad truth. In fact, there's a study that came out that said that more than 1 in 4 Utah teens are feeling sad enough to consider suicide. In fact, there's a graph that came out that showed the teen suicide rate in the country. And there was a red line that shows the graph in the US, and then there's a blue line that shows Utah. And right at around 2011 and 2012, the graph just shoots up. And I think the interesting thing around there is that we know that both Snapchat and Instagram both came out at around 2011 and 2012. So here's a message that we got from a high school counselor. She said, we have seen an astronomical increase in our suicide assessments, mental health assessments, and self-harm in the last 2 years alone. The numbers are out of control. Our small team of 5 counselors, we have done 48 suicide assessments since September, just at the high school alone. So the issue with social media is that social media teaches a lot of the same things, like the billboards that we see when we're driving down the freeway. How many of you guys have been driving on the freeway and you look up and you see those billboards that say things like, you're not good enough, or they say like, hey, do you have wrinkles from laughing too much with your kids? Gross. You should paralyze that with Botox. Or, hey, do you have baby weight after birthing your child 2 seconds ago? Nasty. You should freeze that with cool sculpting. Did you know that Utah has more plastic surgeons per capita than even Los Angeles? So what shocked me the most was coming across this article a few years ago There's an article that said that people are getting surgery to make their faces look like Snapchat filters. I'm not sure if you've ever seen a Snapchat filter, but usually it makes your eyes look a little bit better. It smooths your skin out. It kind of fixes your eyebrows a little bit. People are paying surgeons to make their faces look like Snapchat filters. It's called Snapchat dysmorphia. So what social media has done, it is teaching young girls that they are not beautiful enough and that they need filters if they want to look pretty. So a couple years ago, my buddy Colin Karchner, he was the one who started this movement. He saw all of this and he decided that he was sick of it. And he asked his Instagram followers for donations, and he put up a billboard all around Utah with a very different message for women. And a few days later, people had donated $15,000, and he put up a billboard all around Utah that said, "You are loved." And I just think that is the message that our young girls need to be hearing, is how loved they are, how treasured they are, how appreciated and respected they are. Social media is teaching them that they have to be like someone else if they want to be loved or accepted or pretty. But the interesting thing about that is that Christmas lights and fireworks are both beautiful. But Christmas lights don't try to be fireworks, and fireworks don't try to be Christmas lights. They are beautiful just the way that they are. And that's the same with us. You are great just the way that you are. Maybe you are Christmas lights, or maybe you are fireworks, metaphorically. The only person that you should compare yourself to is who you were yesterday. Just be the best version of yourself and don't worry about being like other people, because you are great. You are beautiful just the way that you are. Girl, you're amazing, just the way you are. Thank you, Bruno Mars. Sponsored by Bruno Mars. All right, so we just talked about all of the problems that social media and video games cause. Now let's kind of turn the tables a little bit and let's talk about the solutions. Let's talk about how we can handle these things, how we can get our kids in a healthy place with these things. So, solution number one is to get rid of toxic apps. There is no reason that any child under the age of 18 should have any of the following apps: TikTok, Twitter, Snapchat, Reddit, or Instagram. And I mean it. I mean it when I say it. There's a message that we got from an American attorney. They said that they worked in the Philippines as a prosecutor of online sexual exploitation of children crimes. They said that the perpetrators, every single one of them, found their victims on a social media website. There was no exception. We got a message from someone who said, "I'm really lucky because I was never allowed to have Snapchat in the first place." And I would say, yes, you are lucky, extremely lucky, because you saved yourself from all the pain and anguish that stupid app is causing. We got another message from a teenage girl who said, "I finally deleted TikTok and Snapchat a few weeks ago. I have never felt better. I have never been more motivated to go and do things. I even got a job. And when I came home from work, I spent time with my family. My sleep schedule is back on track. I feel so much more responsible. I've definitely altogether stepped up in the house. I do my own laundry now. I clean without being asked. All of this because I deleted TikTok and Snapchat." So solution number two is to cut screen time in half, or to do a digital detox, meaning if your kids are on the screens, limit their screen time as much as possible. Now, this is going to be very hard because for about 4 minutes, the kids will freak out. They'll say, "What are we going to do, Mom and Dad? How are we going to live? We're going to be like the Amish kids. Do you want us to churn butter with our feet?" But then after a few minutes, you'll see them playing on the trampoline and being happy kids again. So here's another excerpt from Glow Kids, that book. It says, "If you really want a child to thrive and blossom, lose the screens for the first few years of their lives. During those key developmental periods, let them engage in creative play. Let them explore their surroundings and allow them opportunities to experience nature, either at a park or in the real deal. Activities like cooking and playing music have also been shown to help young children thrive developmentally. But most importantly, pay close attention to this. Let them experience boredom. There is nothing healthier for a child than to learn how to use their own interior resources to work through the challenges of being bored. This then acts as the fertile ground for developing their powers of observation, cultivating patience, and developing an active imagination, the most developmentally important skill that they can learn. Let them live without the glow of the screen while they're kids. They'll have plenty of time later to deal with screens." Did you know that Bill Gates and Steve Jobs are raising their kids with limited tech? Silicon Valley parents are raising their kids tech-free. The inventors of all of these apps and social media and iPads, they know the dangers that they're causing, and people are shocked to find out that Steve Jobs was a low-tech parent. In 2010, one reporter suggested that his children must love the just-released iPad, and then he replied, "Oh, well, they haven't used it. We limit how much technology our kids use at home." It's a smart man. He knows what's going on. The former Facebook president, Sean Parker, he left Facebook, and when he was asked about it, he said, "Man, God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains." So he knows. So that is solution number 2, is to do a digital detox. If a kid is used to 5 hours a day of screen time, cut that down to 1 hour a day and replace those other 4 hours with healthy activities. There are tons of great ideas out there, things that your kids can do with it when they're bored. Build with Legos, build a fort, science experiments, trick shots, make movies with your friends. That's what I did when I was a kid. Hide and seek, painting, board games, card games, have a Nerf war, scavenger hunt, marshmallow fight. Have a competition with their friends to see who can throw the most things into a bin behind them without turning around, or get a ball in a bucket without using their hands. Kids love that stuff. The thing is that kids are creative geniuses when we allow them to be creative geniuses. We don't have to give them an Xbox and an iPad 24/7. So if you do decide to give your kids screen time, more than 1 hour a day of screen time will lead to serious problems, especially if they're watching shows that are fast-paced and frantic like SpongeBob or pretty much any show on Nickelodeon or most of the YouTube videos that they watch nowadays. Another great idea is to require your child to do a physical activity like chore or an exercise for the same amount of time that they're on a screen. Create the expectation that 1 hour of screen time equals 1 hour of yard work or 1 hour of vacuuming or whatever. So Colin Karchner, the one who started this movement, he had a rule in his house. The rule was whenever his kids' friends would come over and play at their house, they would have a basket for all of their friends to put their phones in. Then they could all jump out on the trampoline or play downstairs and not have to worry about someone feeling left out and resorting to their phone. He said that after doing this, in a matter of weeks, their house became the most popular place for the kids to hang out because everybody felt loved and included. Nobody would have to resort to their phone whenever they were feeling left out. Okay, so what the statistics and what the science is showing is the following. If your kids have less than 1 hour a day of screen time, more or less, your kids are fine. Nothing to worry about. If they have 3 to 5 hours a day of screen time, that creates a 30% increase in suicide ideation. And if they are on the screens for 5 or more hours a day, it creates a 71% increase in suicide ideation. So then that begs the question, okay, well then what's the what's the national average right now? What is the national average that our teenagers are spending on their phone every day? What's your guess? Think about it right now. 3, 2, 1, 9.5 hours is the national average of what the average teen spends on their phone every day. Here's another quote from Glow Kids. They say, "It's true that most children will use technology for their jobs and everyday life. It's also true that most children will learn to drive a car. Certainly, we would not give a 7-year-old child the car keys to give them a jump start to be a more skillful driver. The most important suggestion that I can give is to delay as much as possible your child's individual exposure to screen devices. Let your kids be kids, the way that nature and evolution had intended them to develop. Let them play, explore, create, use their imagination, and just watch the miracles of their developing minds unfold. And very importantly, allow them the opportunity to be bored. There is no better master for innate creativity than a child compelled to entertain themselves. If at all possible, don't fall into the trap of feeling obligated to keep your little ones perpetually entertained. You will do more harm than good." So that comes from Glow Kids, which oh my gosh, guys, if there's one book that you read this year about parenting, please read Glow Kids. It is the 2022 and 2023 parenting required reading. So please read it. All right, solution number 3 is to restrict where tech is used. You should have rules in your house that is the following. Absolutely no phones in the bedroom. Absolutely not in the bathroom, not after bedtime, and bonus points, not at school. And the reason for that is to encourage your kids to go to school without their smartphones. Research has shown that when schools have a ban on phone use, the test scores improve anywhere from 7 to 20%. If you expect your kid to be able to have a phone in the classroom and not be distracted by it, you will be wrong. This stuff is like digital crack for kids. I don't care if you have Katy Perry in front of the class teaching algebra on a unicycle. The gravitational pull of the phone is just too powerful for these kids. So regardless of school district policies, parents should be the ultimate arbiters of whether or not their children have phones and whether or not they are allowed to take those phones to school. If parents do allow their children to take phones to school, then at the very least, they should put restrictions on their phones. There's a message that we got from a mom who she said that she took away all of their kids' video games, their Xbox, their iPads, their PlayStation. And she said, my kids are losing their mind right now, but it justifies everything that I'm doing. I feel so bad, but I know that I'm making the right decision. And I just want to give that mom an applause. There was another message that we got from a mom. She said that she went to one of our parent nights with her 11-year-old, and she said that she went from, I am the only one at school without a phone, you're ruining my life, to, Mom, I'm glad that you want to protect me from having a phone too soon and helping me to have a happier life. Okay, one thing that we do is when we go to schools, sometimes we'll pass around little slips of paper to the kids and we'll have them fill in a blank. We'll say, one thing that my parents don't know about social media is blank, fill it in. And then we pass out these little slips and the kids will fill them out and then they'll send them back to us. And a couple of answers that we get is, one thing that my parents don't know about social media is that it's just a fun way to talk to my friends, or one thing that they don't know is that they're blocked. But by far the most common answer that we get to that question is, one thing that my parents don't know about social media is how easy it is to hide things from them. Kids know how to bypass firewalls, break through security measures, disable filters, find pornography in a matter of seconds, sneak into your room, steal their phones back, send messages that delete themselves, send hidden nude pictures, create fake accounts to harass others, and hide them from their parents. Now, remember the three most important words, not my kid, because if your kids have social media or a smartphone, chances are they are doing one, if not some of these, if not all of these. There's a rule that my older sister has with her kids, and I absolutely love it. Her and her husband, they have this rule where they say to their young daughters, they only have daughters, but they tell them, if you do something bad, if you are honest with us, you will not get in trouble. But if you are dishonest with us, that is when you will get into so much trouble. They're engraving honesty into their kids from a young age so that their kids will learn to tell them anything. I would recommend doing this with all of your kids until they're at least 10 years old, because it just building that honesty into them is so crucial and so important into their lives, realizing that, like, yes, I am your parent, but also I'm your friend and I want to help you and I will always be honest with you. So please be honest with me. In this house, we're honest with each other. We don't lie. And it's really important to teach that to your kids from a very young age. Okay, solution number 4 is to monitor their phones. There's a lot of great apps out there for parent monitoring. One is called Web Safety. If you use the coupon code SAVETHEKIDS, you can get a little bit of a discount. But the very best app for monitoring your kids' phones is you. Monitor your kids' phones and tell them, hey, you can monitor my phone too. You can say, in this family, we don't hide things from each other. It's not that I don't trust you, but that is one of the rules that has to be in play if you have a smartphone. If I can't monitor your phone, then you can't have one. It is not your phone. It is my phone that I am allowing you to use. I own the phone. I am paying for the phone. It is my phone. I am just allowing you to use it. That means I can check it anytime. That means I can take it away anytime. That means if it is getting too unhealthy or too dangerous, I will just make it so you don't even have a phone. So please tell your kids that you should be monitoring their phone randomly at times. Don't say, okay, honey, I'm going to monitor your phone every night at 8 p.m. because they're going to go through and they're going to delete all the things that they don't want you to see right before 8 p.m. So just make it random and sporadic. If your kid, if they're on YouTube Kids or on YouTube, you better be in the same room as them with the screen fully visible, because even YouTube Kids, there is some crazy, crazy stuff on there. Make sure that the sound is turned up to where you can hear it, because again, it may look like they're watching Spider-Man and Elsa, but a lot of times the audio is crazy. A lot of vulgar things, a lot of inappropriate things that they could be watching or listening to. Here's a message that we got from a teenage girl. She said, when I got that phone in my hands, I was hooked. Everything evil was at my fingertips. people posting lies that made me feel so inferior, products being sold, pornography on my feed, even accounts that promoted eating disorders and self-harm. I'm not kidding. I fed off of this stuff for the longest time and it destroyed me. Please tell all of the parents, please tell them to watch their kids. I wish so badly that my parents had monitored my phone when I was young and saved me from that darkness. I dealt with suicide attempts, self-harm, anorexia, hospital visits, countless therapy, addiction. I was lucky to survive because a lot of kids don't. I don't blame it all on social media, but I know that it had a huge impact on how deep I fell. It took away my innocence and it taught me to hate who I am. Another message that we got from a parent. She said, we live in a very conservative area, yet my husband and I are considered weird for not giving our child access to a phone or even an iPod. To me, they're not that different. How do we gently bring this issue to light? My daughter's friends has TikTok and we rarely let them hang out because I know what's being shared on there. And we've had so many conversations with our daughter about social media and the dangers on their friends' phones. Any advice? Yes, the advice that we would give to that is it is okay to tighten your circle. It's okay to lose playdates or to lose friends. This is a battle and you need people in your bunker who understand the enemy to take it seriously. It's not worth it for me or for my kids to be exposed to something traumatic at a friend's house simply because I didn't say something to their parents. It's like, how would you react if your kids' friends were doing cocaine at their house? Obviously, you'd be like, no, honey, that is not acceptable. That is not appropriate. We are not doing that. You're not allowed to be over there. So, yeah, very similar. So Colin Karchner, again, the guy who started this movement, he had another rule for their kids that if they go play at a friend's house, if the phones come out, you come home. So that was the rule that they had, and they said it wasn't an issue. Their kids knew that if phones would come out at their friend's house, they would have to come home. And they ended up talking to the friends about it, and it ended up not being an issue. Okay, solution number 5 is the Gab phone, which is an absolutely incredible device. I very seldomly will back things on Kickstarter, but when Gab came out, I backed them on Kickstarter because I thought it was just such a great idea. The Gab phone, it looks like a smartphone. It has a touchscreen. It looks all cool and all that stuff, but it has no internet. It has no games. It has no social media. And you can use the coupon code STK for $25 off. After that, it's anywhere from $18 to $25 a month. So obviously you should still be monitoring your kids' texts if they do have this phone, but it is an absolute godsend. As soon as I have kids, I am definitely getting them the Gab phone or the Gab watch. It has a little GPS tracker so you can know where they're at all times. So another message that we got said from a parent, they said, last night I was talking with my 11-year-old daughter who does not have a phone about different apps and games that I feel are inappropriate. I was trying to explain that the reason that we're talking so much about this is that even though she doesn't have a phone, it's because I want to protect her and make her aware. She looked right at me and she said, Mom, I want you to protect me. I'm scared of all this too. So solution number 6 is more connection. It is a lot harder. And I know that it's a lot more demanding on parents because after a long day, we just want to say, here, take this phone or take this iPad and leave me alone. It's been a long day. But now you actually have to make eye contact with them. And I know that it's hard and I know that it's frustrating, but our kids need connection now more than ever. Our kids need hugs now more than ever. They need people to talk to now more than ever. In fact, how many hugs do you think that we need every day just to maintain proper brain health? Well, we need 8 hugs a day that last for 8 seconds each. And that's especially true, after COVID, because during that time, kids basically didn't have any physical affection. So, 8 hugs a day that last for 8 seconds each. If you have kids and if you're listening to this, I challenge you to go give your kid an 8-second hug right after you're done listening to this. Here's a message that we got from someone at our school. They said, before you spoke, I was really sad. I didn't really connect with my family. I kind of started to feel like I didn't even know them, but I already feel more connected after deleting all of my social media. And when I did that 8-second hug thing, it made my day so much because it's been almost over a year since I've had a hug. So thank you so much. Another message that we got, I've been off social media apps for almost a month now, and I've noticed such a difference. I've realized that I have been happier, healthier, more involved with my family. I've been chosen to take the initiative and to spend at least an hour a day with my family. Ever since I started doing this, my family has grown stronger together. My little sister now knows how to ride her bike, tie her shoes, and she knows how to read at 5 years old thanks to me and taking a break from social media. Listening to you speak had such an impact on my life. Your message is really what I needed to hear. Thank you, thank you. Okay, crazy thing. Did you know that Disney princesses at Disneyland or Disney World, Disney princesses are not allowed to break a hug? Once they go in to give someone a hug, they are not allowed to be the first person to break the hug. They will hold on to that little girl for as long as the girl wants to hug them for. I challenge you, next time you go to Disneyland, give that a try. Tell your little daughter, your little girl, to go up and hug a Disney princess and to never let go. And she'll hold on for hours, for days. And that's just cute. That's just the most adorable thing I've ever heard. But yeah, kids need purpose. They need to feel like they have a sense of belonging, and they need to feel loved. They need to feel connected. Thing is that kids play video games because it makes them feel a sense of purpose. They like squatting up with their band of brothers or their friends to go and take on the bad guy or the villain. Video games, they fill the void that kids are feeling from not getting enough love from us and from others. The ironic thing is that the purpose of social media was to make us feel more connected, but all it did was make us feel more depressed and isolated. So a kid who has healthy human connections and healthy hobbies and outlets is less likely to fall into depression. So that was solution number 6, which is give more connection. Solution number 7 is to be the example. And this is a really big issue that we see all the time. We get messages from kids all the time who say things like this. I so wish my parents would take the time to just talk to me. My parents tend to just yell at me instead. I had a trip planned with my friends that I was super excited, but I can't go anymore because her family got sick. But when I was upset and I was crying about it to my mom, she just yelled at me because I stressed her out more. My parents don't care about my mental health unless it makes them feel better. Another message that we got, we talked about how it's okay for kids to play with Legos or to make messes, and that making a mess is way better than being on an iPad. And a response that we got was that the thing is that my parents and most of my friends' parents discourage this kind of play because we're just making a mess. So we play video games because we don't get yelled at for making a mess or for being loud. And what I say to that is normalize messes. It is okay to have messes. They're kids. We are setting the example for our kids. When we have our phones out and when we're taking pictures and videos of everything, we are teaching them that being there doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is posting about it. When we ask kids if they talk to their parents about the issues that they have with social media, they usually say no. And when we ask them why, the number one reason that they say is because, my mom will take away my phone if she knew. The number 2 reason is my mom doesn't care. And then we ask, well, why do you feel like she doesn't care? And they say, well, it's because she's on her phone all day. So the number 1 reason why kids are struggling is because their parents are too addicted to their phones to give them love and attention. A message that we got from a teenage girl says, I've never felt so distant from my parents, and it's because I can't get my mom or dad to put down their stupid phones and get off Facebook and Instagram to listen about my day or to ask questions or talk about my feelings. I've never felt more unloved and uncared for because of a stupid cell phone. Showing your kids that you love them, it is 2% effort, and it is 98% putting down your phone. So just a recap of all of these solutions. Number 1, get rid of toxic apps. Number 2, limit screen time as much as possible. Remember, no more than 1 hour a day or it will lead to serious problems. Number 3, restrict where tech is used, not in the bedroom, not in the bathroom. Number 4, monitor their phones. Number 5, get the Gab phone for your kid if you haven't already. Number 6, have more connection, 8-second hugs. And number 7, be the example and just spend time with your kids, spend time with your family. So this is a message that I am super passionate about, and I have seen how social media can really bless and influence others, but I've also just seen it destroy people. And because I work with so many social media influencers and YouTubers, this is something that I feel very passionate about because I know that our kids, the rising generation, are our future leaders. They are the future of the world, and they're so amazing and they're so incredible. But social media, sadly, is destroying a lot of that stuff and sadly is winning all of the negative things of social media. I feel like right now the negative things are outweighing the positive things. So I want to flip that back around. So If you would like to have me come speak at your school or at your events, girls camp or fireside or parent night or conference, or even get your neighborhood friends together and have me come speak to them, I'd love to come speak. Please reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram is Nick Sales. Send me a message and we can talk about pricing and everything like that. But I'd love to come speak to you guys about this message. It's something that I feel like is so, so important for us to know and for our kids to know, because they are the future generation. And that just leads me to my final point, which is that there's a quote from Frederick Douglass, and he said, "It is easier to build strong children than repair broken men." And this is why we talk about this. This is why we do what we do, is because I would rather teach these things now and have your kids turn out to be healthy than have you pay for all of their therapy sessions later when they're struggling with all these terrible things. So that's it for this podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe, leave a comment below, and we'll see you guys in the next one.